meeting has officially come to order. The Philipsburg Town Council meeting, April 4th, 2017, at 7 o'clock in the Philipsburg Town Hall. On our agenda tonight is council vacancy, then our normal minutes to our financials, our standing reports from Sheriff through the Parks Board, old business, PIA agreement, sewer lagoon desludging, property tax options, and weed control. Non-business, Chris Cooney, Belmont Street, and then non-agenda items, and then we will adjourn. All councilmen are present, so is Mr. Vukinich, our Public Works Director, and also Mr. Robert Medoff, our town lawyer, and of course Mr. Spiegel, our town clerk. We do have a few people in the audience tonight, and we welcome you. So first things off, I think we should do the council vacancy. So if you want to come up here. We have not even made a motion for that? Oh, I thought we did last meeting.
No, we took the last meeting because it was working.
Okay. Do I have a motion to appoint Nicole Nelch to the vacant council position for the town of Philipsburg?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, got a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Okay. So. Now
you're in over your head.
Boy,
Where's she gonna sit? Down there between them two. Now we gotta keep the weight away.
Does anybody have a camera?
I got one.
Yeah, let's have you sit right over here.
Let's get a photo before you.
Right now. Face me.
too dead.
Okay. I do solemnly swear, just repeat,
solemnly swear
or affirm, that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay, Nicole, please come and join us.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a seat for me and everything.
Can we learn a little bit about Nicole?
Last meeting we did.
Oh, last meeting, okay. All right,
you were
and there
gone.
was,
Yeah, sure.
I was here.
Yeah.
You were here?
What's that?
We'll address the audience and ask them if any questions.
Oh, does anybody have any questions for Nicole? I guess not. Okay, very good. Well, let's get going. Minutes of the prior meeting. I don't see any.
Not this time.
Okay. Payroll and bills payable.
Normal payroll. Again, probably a couple extra overtime hours for the crew here and there. But nothing out of the ordinary. If you guys have any questions.
Does any of the council members have any questions on the payroll? Okay. How about bills payable?
Bills payable. Okay. First item. We get the money from the state directly to the town for the Fire Department Relief Association. So then we, in turn, cut a check out to them. So that's just kind of a processing thing. I guess we never gave money to the Smithsonian kids from last summer, so we're following up on that. Town hall mats, library mats, water samples, sewer samples. That fee for the annual financial report, which I need to look into that again, figure out how to get that done. Roto-Rooter, we videoed another?
4 other items, 4 other lines.
Okay.
I have a comment about that. If I'm correct, we videoed at least 5 lines in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, there were 4 on one occasion,
And then the one-
actually 2 others.
2 others,
So
so
probably
6. 6. That last bill was $350 for up at Chris's
Yeah,
Miller's.
Chris Miller's, yeah, and the Winning Hawk line.
So $750, counting this 4 here, and, is that 5? Yeah. So we're, on average, what do you think we camera a year, or is this a big year?
Well, there's some unusual things that we've done. I'm not saying unusual in the sense that they weren't necessary. Yeah, they were necessary things that kind of been chasing us for a while.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious for the near term, if we get into spending a couple $1,000s on cameraing, I would look at the possibility of getting a camera at some point, and sooner than later. So that's just my comment on that, so we should look at the numbers a little more closely. That's all I,
Okay.
What does a unit like that cost, John? You got any idea?
Right about 10,000. 350
I've been
camera.
online, I've seen them 3,500.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on what you're, how much, you know, what level you go to with them. There's a pretty big wide opening there, you know.
Okay, and then the next probably 9 items, which are all listed as the town of Philipsburg is the vendor. It's a little catch-up thing. This is the process by which we sell power to ourselves. So you can see it's broken down month by month. And this is part of what funds our electric fund, between that and the money that comes from the school. So you can see the breakdown. Obviously, the bills tend to be smaller when it's warmer, and then in the winter it gets up higher. Yearly. Yeah. You guys have any questions about that?
So now, you had to do this just to kind of get our books up to the...
So every month we get the readings of the power that we produce, and so it's just a matter of creating these bills, and then basically we run them as claims, and then they in turn turn into revenue vouchers for the electric fund. So it's
What page on, Reed?
starting on 1, so claim number 6085 to claim number 6093. So page 1 to 3.
Okay.
So it's an internal processing thing, but the way that it at least was done in the past is going through the claims. So when we look at the financials later, the actual budget on the revenue side, you'll see these totaled as an item coming into the electric fund, or going out of the electric fund rather, and then that same amount going out of all of these funds. Sorry, let me back up. Out of all these different funds, and then that in turn will be going into the electric fund. Sorry, that was kind of confusing.
Well, you can explain a little bit more when we get to that point. How's that
Yeah.
sound?
Do we have a reading? I don't see anything for the UV building. As far as them addressing or reading that meter? Or is that the chlorinator?
I think that would be a chlorinator.
Well, chlorinator's got 2 heaters in it, so I'm thinking that still could be reasonable. There's a pump that's running constantly, and I see that gradually going up, but I don't see anything for the UV building.
Not sure. This is the expenditure side, so you can see what we do is we take the town shop and we take that out of the sewer fund and put it to electric, and then the chlorinator and the pressure valve are taken out of water and put towards electric. I don't know if you see that. So I'm not really. Maybe we should sit down and
We'll look at
talk
the-
about all this. And,
Yeah, we'll look at the bill and see it, and I'll get the meter number and
um,
see if we can make sense of that.
The chlorinator appears to be the biggest chunk in there, huh?
Well, as it gets progressively bigger,
Right, that's what I'm looking at.
as it gets colder, and
Right.
there's 2 heaters, electric heaters in each side of that building.
Are they built-in baseboard heaters to
No.
the building, or are they plug-in
No,
electric?
they're wall heaters,
Oh,
ceiling mounted
See,
heaters.
okay. 894.87 in January.
For 1 month? Ooh, January, yeah.
That's why I was wondering if it wasn't part of
Well,
the
you can see
UV.
and you can see the trend here. September 242, October 452, November 556, January 701, December 701, January 894. So,
I think that
But
has
it
to
come-
have those in
but
there.
it- But it came back down in
Right,
February though.
We got a warm February.
757.
Okay, you guys can maybe let me know what's going on with that. We're done.
yeah, I think it'd probably be a good at some point to sit down about all our electric bills too and make sure all the meter numbers are in the right spot and all that kind of stuff. So
And I don't see the booster station on there either.
I don't know if that was ever in the spreadsheet.
But it's got its own meter.
Yeah, that would be my guess for all that
Combined.
power, because those big line shaft pumps those are the big boys in there.
And there's heater in there too.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a little more than heating. I mean, that looks like some pump.
But it's listed as a chlorinator.
Oh,
And that's what Reed and I have to get.
We need to figure out if that's a combination.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be, because each one has a separate meter.
Right.
yeah.
So there's some discrepancy here.
Okay.
But yeah,
well,
we can do
You
that.
Mm-hmm.
guys go ahead and I'll give you the direction to please discuss that and then let me know. And I'll advise the council.
So after that, on page 3, got some visa bills. Rural Economic Designs, which is Tracy, the grant writer, hasn't been doing much work. 211. Philipsburg Mail, I got a couple ads. It's kind of routine stuff, and then you can see our Northwest Energy bill on page 4.
I have a question,
Yes,
because I'm kind of a Luddite. What is the domain renewal?
that was basically to buy our URL, right?
No, the .gov. The .gov register, they raised their rate this year. It was 125, and they hadn't changed the rate in like 10 years or something. So they beefed it up to like 400.
Sounds like my insurance policy.
Kind of.
Fendler Electric did some stuff for you guys, David, at the fire hall. Is that right?
Palmer?
I think it said Fendler.
Oh, Finler.
Yeah. Is that right? Bob dropped off a couple invoices today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can I make a minute on that domain?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he was there, I know.
Actually,
I
it worked out okay.
We don't have our
because we
meeting till
ended
next
up not
week,
having
so-
to pay a lot of other expenses.
don't
because
know what
of
his
the way
bill
we did
was.
the contract.
How much was it?
340.
Yeah.
And then Mile High Heating, gas lines to oven. Not sure. Sherry put these in.
How much was that?
500.
500?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then another thing, which Dan kind of brought to my attention, was just going back through the loans, and because we had talked about the Broadway water main that was replaced, or we did the horizontal drilling for. So those payments had been coming out automatically from our account, but we hadn't been recording them. So you can see starting on page 5, I got, again, every month, this is more just catch-up work. It's $791.28 per month. We didn't refinance it when we got that $20,000 from the DNRC. The payments are the same. Basically, it's just going to be paid off, 2.5 years early. So that's kind of that. And Gina had a training in Drummond, so there's some mileage reimbursement. You guys have questions on anything?
So do I have a motion to approve the bills payable?
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Okay, they've been approved. Water and sewer adjustments.
Don't pay it? Well, they just approved it.
I know.
Alright. Yeah, sorry, one sec. Water and sewer adjustments were pretty low this month. We had, the one big one is that George Peterson, the guy who doesn't live in the house anymore, and basically we got him to zero out his account, which was super delinquent, but we wrote off some of the past due. He's not living in it, and yeah, it's kind of a weird situation, so that's pretty much the big one. Questions?
I have none.
We got someone off the delinquent list, so that's good.
Excellent. How about the council? Any questions on the water and sewer adjustments? Okay, do I have a motion to pass the water and sewer adjustments?
I'll make that motion.
Got a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Okay. That has been approved. Project request payments. So we have Sanderson Stewart, and it is invoice 42455, dated March 10th, 2017, in respect to phone calls with the DEQ, DNRC, and the town to review the sludge removal plan, review options for land application at the town's 20-acre dump site versus the use of the Black Pine Depository, review John Vukanich's plan for sludge removal and lagoon upgrades. And it is for a total of $2,403.39. And in the next sheet you have the billing process. And that's the only one we have. Wow.
Should ramp back up.
What's that?
It should ramp back up after tonight.
Yeah. And I don't see any problem with this, gentlemen. This is pretty clear cut.
Make a motion to accept for the pay.
Got a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nay,
So we have 1 nay and 5. Did you disdain on yours, Mr. Johnson? I didn't.
No. Should do.
Okay. Okay, so we can pay that. Let's go to our financials.
Okay. Well, we are now 3/4 of the way through the year, so percentage received, we want it to be around 75%. So I think everything's looking pretty good. Sewer is a little under because a lot of that is the intercap loan, the 150,000 that we still have potentially to receive from that. So, and then electric is low because of what we talked about earlier on the claims, selling the power to ourselves. So that'll be back in line. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions?
Rita, I have a question if I can.
Yeah.
That intercap loan,
Yes.
is that a typical construction loan that you only pay on what you've used?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we made one payment, I think, in February on it, but it was, yeah, it was
Okay.
based on the amount that we'd already.
Sure, it's based on.
We're gonna examine that loan and whether that thing gets sucked back into the system, what the timeline might be, and see if we might be able to apply that to the, for the process with the loans. We discussed that a little bit today, and the possibility of trying to avoid that being reabsorbed. So as we proceed with this process with the lagoons, that'll be part, to see if we can roll that remaining, and we don't know what that number is. It could be 150, 100, somewhere in between there, because we haven't gotten the final payment on that other stuff. Something will be there.
Is there a timeline to that, Dan?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna find out. We wanna make sure not too much time passes before we have some sort of an outline of a plan that we might be able to absorb that into the next phase. That's
Yeah,
something-
but is there a drop dead line on the intercap loan that we,
To use it,
to use it?
yeah, that's what we're gonna inquire about.
Actually, I think she did say it was usually a year from when it was.
Okay, well, there you go.
So we're talking September of this year, right? It's not when it was done. But she seemed open to the possibility of moving it into the next phase, whatever the remaining funds were. So then the next 4 pages are the revenues in a more detailed fashion, going fund by fund. Looking at water, metered service and unmetered, we're at 77 and 71%, so that's basically on line with where we're at. Sewer, pretty similar at 76 and 79 as far as what we're collecting from the town, the people of the town, in water and sewer bills. Then you can look at the revenue side after that. It's the expenditure side. You're looking for that same kind of 75%. You don't really want to be too far over that. And everything's looking pretty good. One other thing of note, though, is the water fund as a whole. You can see on the revenue side, we're at 161%, and on the expenditure side, we're at 159%. So we are on the right side of that at least, but we may want to look into amending the water budget before the end of the fiscal year, because we've gone so far over. And that was related to the reimbursements on the ultraviolet project and that grant anticipation note when we had that large influx of money come in and then the large influx of money be paid out almost immediately. So but received to date we're at 903 and the committed is 718, so we're on the good side of that. You wouldn't want the alternative. So
Is your recommendation to refer this to the finance committee?
Yeah.
So that they can explore the possibility of doing this amended
yeah,
process?
that would be good. So
And I
maybe
think
the next
that's-
committee meeting we have for the finance committee, that would be a topic of discussion. And then the expenditures are broken out in detail over the next 9 pages after that. If there's anything that you guys have noticed, yeah, it's hard to digest all of this in 10 minutes. So, looking at it maybe at home and if something pops out for the next meeting, you can bring it up too.
And we had a finance meeting scheduled for last week, correct, on a Friday?
No, it was the week before.
Yeah. But we didn't really have it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
something about- You wanna do it this Friday?
Yeah, we'll communicate and
Okay.
we can set it. And
Just let me know a day or two. in
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the revenues, the financial package?
I'll make the motion to approve the financials.
Okay, you got a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay.
And
Alright.
if you have questions before the next meeting,
Yeah.
just anyone can come in and ask me anything specifically too.
The original appropriation versus current appropriation. Current appropriation means we haven't gotten it yet? Is that what that means? And I was looking at gas tax.
So that would actually be if you amended it, right? So committed year to date is the actual amount. Original appropriation would be the budget that we set, and then if you were to change the appropriation, which would be actually the process of amending the budget, then that would go into current appropriation, right?
Available appropriation and current appropriation, can you add those two together?
No, I mean, what do you mean?
You're stating that that's 56% is committed?
What are you looking at here?
Just a gas tax 2820. The fund.
On expenditure? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying is, right now, current appropriation, that whole thing doesn't really matter because we haven't amended the budget. So everything it's gonna be the same for
Okay,
both of
so
those.
it's the same number, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
If we were to amend the budget, then on this sheet, it would have what we originally budgeted under original appropriation, and then the amended version would go under current appropriation.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, let's go ahead to standing reports. I did meet with the sheriff. There was some concern about traffic up in Parkerville going a little too fast on, I believe it's Brown Street and one other street up there, Main. And so I alerted the sheriff to patrol that area a little more heavy, and to issue tickets if they're warranted. So he's had, one of the problems is that they've had is chasing the school buses because people have been passing the school buses with the lights on, so.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, so they've been kind of occupied with that, but he said everything was pretty quiet around town and that's kind of what he left off. Town clerk, do you have anything else you wanna?
No, other than finance committee meeting and the possibility of amending the water fund.
Okay. All right, Director of Public Works.
I've given you copies of the staff meeting that we had this morning and, the daily work report diary for the month of March. If you have any questions or comments,
Most of these we're gonna discuss later on.
yeah, and that's,
Yeah.
kind of what I figured. So if there's any questions, any,
I just wanna make note that we meet with, myself and another councilman meet with, Mr. Vukinich every Tuesday to kinda get our eyes in the right direction and what's coming up, and so these are very useful meetings for us. Okay, well, if nothing else, let's go ahead and go on. The town attorney.
The biggest news since the last meeting is a complaint, a lawsuit was filed by former Councilwoman Butler, for wrongful discharge from the council. I'm gonna be drafting an answer to that and going through that process with the court. I'll keep you all updated. Basically, we have 21 days to answer that. She's representing herself, so we'll be going down that process. Other than that, Reed and I this week are hopefully gonna get together and, go through the water, backwater bills and sewer bills. The letters have expired their 60 days, so it's time to send out additional letters and start putting some liens on some places, and we'll tackle that this week and maybe next. Other than that, pretty clear. Does anyone have any questions?
I would like to know when you guys arrange to meet on those late fees. I'd like to be a party to that discussion. And one other question concerning the complaint, was that filed in district court?
Yes.
and this is just a matter of procedure that kinda I've been through. Do you send that return receipt, so she's gotta sign for it, so she, definitely she
I
has
will
received the
send
document?
everything, return and receipt, certified mail as well, so just so we have records of all
Sure.
mailings.
And you did, but
Okay, any other questions? All right, library board. I met with Mrs. Ransford last week on Friday for about an hour and a half. And what her hopes are is that she would like to set up the funding for the library from just the people that are in town boundaries to wherever the school district runs. So we would be looking at down approximately almost a hall, is that correct? And then towards the ranch at Rock Creek, I suppose, down. Yeah, I don't know exactly how far that goes down.
Yeah, even Lost Sapphire and Arrowstone subdivision south of Scalcahoe are included in that, so. probably
So
goes
anyway,
all the
she
way.
was wanting us to be able to discuss this with us, and if it sounds like it's something that we wanna go down that path, then we just have to tell her, and she will start putting the information together. And I think that she told me that might have to be voted on, is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get with the county attorney, Mr. Bradshaw, this week and discuss moving forward with, or what it would take to move forward with that.
They have been talking about that for several months now.
What's this, a mill levy to support the library?
It's essentially extending the current mill levy that's just on the town to be the whole school district, which is a larger area than the town.
That's what she explained to me.
She's planning on attending the mid-month meeting. She'll have some information for you guys.
And she also was meeting with the commissioners, I believe, today. If I wasn't mistaken. The other thing that she talked about is plans for the library are over there. There has been some changes that they recommended. She thinks that probably the most major part of the renovation of City Hall is to make sure we have bathrooms put in right away. So her proposal, or at least what she's looking at, is putting a door on the outside of this partition where there is a bathroom and sewer and water already, and then putting 2 high industrial bathrooms, a women's and a men's, with 2
Stalls.
Yeah, stalls, yeah. 2 stalls on each side, and then have a door that we could access from this side also, that we would probably keep locked most of the time, you know, and so that was one of the big things. And then the other thing is, she wanted us to kind of look at plans for the town offices. The way she kind of explained to me, this is down the road a little bit, so I mean, we got plenty of time. This isn't anything happening right away. But she would like to be able to move all the library over into that part of the fire hall on big carts. And then while this was being worked on, we would, you know, we'd be able to move around and kind of get out of the way, so. But anyway, if any of you have any questions, she's probably the person to talk to. And that's about all I have from the library.
One other thing on that, they are doing a good job. They've been planning this out for a long time and looking at everything.
They got money?
They are, yes, raising money.
They're raising money?
Yeah, that's what the Labor Day concert has been going on for the last 2 years, and then there's some, you know, other fundraising they're doing as well.
That'd be quite a bit to do what they wanna do.
Yeah, but I think they have a 5-year plan. So, they've got a good chunk already.
I've got a question to throw out there, and I'm not being anti-library or anything else, but where are we gonna store the equipment that's in there now?
That was my question the other day.
I mean,
That was my question the other day, Jim.
okay, well, we've got a little room problem. We're gonna have to somehow try to figure it out, because you've got vehicles in there that are constantly there, except for what, Flint Creek Valley days maybe, you know, and the ambulance is here.
It's a good question.
What about that county building where we're parking everything that there's?
Yeah, it's not really suitable for, I mean, it is, but
We'd have to invest some money into that to put heat in it, maybe some insulation and that kind of thing. But that's an alternative, certainly, yeah, that's what
the
I push
ambulance
to
will
get
be,
that.
the ambulance will be leaving, but, I mean, you still have,
Is the little France in there right now, the old one, the
it's
39?
out here, yeah.
Yeah.
What is the general usage theory behind the LaFrance? Why do we have it?
Because it's cool and it looks great in parades.
So there's a sentimental factor to owning it and
Yeah.
storing it.
Right.
There's no practical
No.
factor to having it.
No, no,
That's the same with the red truck too,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
that red, yeah. Those
Absolutely
are
not.
used in parades.
Yep.
Flint Creek Valley Days, they'll be rolling up and down the street, and that's pretty much it.
Do you think either one of you gentlemen, do you think a lean-to, if it was built, would suffice for them or not?
Yeah,
Is that-
yeah, you'd have to do something, I mean, you could, I mean, we have 2 pieces of equipment that are sitting at the shop now that are sitting outside, that there's probably, what do you think, John Boy? $300,000 worth of, gear that sits outside that needs a lean-to, and that's not even including this stuff sitting in here, so.
Well, I'm not so sure that a lean-to would suffice either, I mean, I think this guy should be in an enclosed building, I mean, 40 below zero is 40 below zero. And we should have some,
Well, then
It's just a thought.
Excuse me, again, like Councilman Ady said, I'm not anti-library, but my personal opinion is we need to get out in front of this thing a little bit better. I would hate to see these folks put all this time and energy into this, and then after enough stuff is compiled in terms of planning and approach and some money, then they come to us and ask us if it's okay. Is that how this is proceeding? Because I don't recall, since I've been on the council, that anyone on this council has ever put forth a motion that says this is okay, we want to renovate.
I don't know, I mean, I certainly haven't voted on that. So,
there's been a talk about it, and there hasn't been a flat out, no, we don't wanna do this. The reason I'm bringing this up is again, I would hate to see this get the cart before the horse with this.
right,
And it seems to me that the council should at least make some sort of public declaration that these folks need to can proceed with this, in some way, as opposed to them coming in and saying,
we're ready to.
we're ready to do this, or
Yeah.
so, I don't know, I guess I'm feeling like we need to have a little more interaction with this, and so I guess I'm just putting it out on the floor. Is a renovation of this place all right with this council? Are people generally supportive of it?
Again, well, the money is coming from where? Grants, they're raising their own money, right? How much does it come out of our pocket?
Well, we're gonna have to renovate the offices.
Okay.
That's gonna be our responsibility. And I think, to answer your question a little bit, I think Mrs. Lansford understands that. I mean, she understands that they're not trying to put the horse before the cart or whatever, that she just wanted us to know that this is kind of what they're looking at. So, I don't even know if like I say, maybe next meeting she'll be able to come in here, and then, like you say, I think that's a good idea, that we say, yeah, we wanna go on, or yes, we do not.
We should invite her in to talk.
She is coming in 2 days.
Excuse me, I do believe in the process of all this, there has been an intention for the library board to sit down with the council to sort of, but it just hasn't happened yet. One thing I think one thing that interfered with that was the accident in the front, the collision into the building. That kind of put everything into a flux.
Are you currently the liaison?
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah, which I was gonna find out if Nicole might want to take over.
Well, I'm interested in being on the library committee, but I'd like to attend a committee meeting first before
Okay, before you make a decision, okay.
Thank you.
I've become like real busy, so I'm sort of juggling things
I'm definitely interested.
okay.
Well, you'll make sure that she
Yes.
knows it well in advance
Yes,
to
yes.
plan for that, for the next one.
Absolutely.
You know when the next one is.
They're generally around the middle of the month, I'll check, it's written on their board.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could give you a comment on this, it appears, and I met with Linda Ransford, Steve Emmitshu, Jim Jenner, myself, Dustin Muley, after the Rotary meeting 2 weeks ago. And, I threw out the idea of the public bathrooms, that I feel that's really an important thing in this town. Along with contributions coming from, probably from Chamber of Commerce, along with Rotary. But it was a little vague, and in her comments to me, appeared that they have the cart ahead of the horse. In other words, this is our building. They're a tenant. They're asking for a tenant improvement that they are willing to finance. And she asked me point blank a couple of times, how do you think the town is going to finance it? And I said, that's really not up to me. Finance our portion of it. And in some respects, I think there is the cart before the horse. There should be some town interaction into this planning process, so we get fit into the space that we as the owners want.
That's exactly what I was referring to in terms of, for example.
Yes.
If this thing proceeds up to the point, then we need to be, assuming that we want to proceed with this, the first thing, order of business, is to figure out the budget, how it affects our budget. So it has to, there's a potentiality that it's going to be folded into the budget maybe it's 5 years out, I don't know. But the point is that we have to, that's our responsibility to do that. How is the town going to finance it? Great question. That would be my first question. So that starts in the budgeting process. We have to look at our budget and say, where is this money coming from? So there's a lot of work on our part with regard to this.
Right.
Any other comments? Okay, well, we will visit with Mrs. Ransford and see what's going on there. Fire department I do want to read a letter that was given to me on behalf of the Philipsburg Volunteer Fire Department. It says, to the Philipsburg Town Council from David Ray, Chief, Philipsburg Fire Department, date March 25th, 2017, in relationship to the February 21st, 2017 house fire. On behalf of our entire department, we want to let you know how much we appreciate the quick response and on-scene support from town staff during this unfortunate event. Because the dwelling involved is located south of town in the county, we were required to shuttle approximately 58,000 gallons of water from the town's hydrants to the scene. We received mutual aid from both Georgetown Lake volunteers and Valley Fire. Between our three departments, there were 4 tanker trucks involved that had to be repeatedly filled from within the town. Because of icy street conditions, it was difficult for some of the trucks to access the hydrants that provided the best source of water. This required the area to be sanded, and the town crew got this done quickly and efficiently when we realized it would speed our turnaround times. Again, on behalf of our entire department, we deeply appreciate the support of the town crew. David Ray, Chief. Very nice, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, David, what do you got?
Nothing much really, just same thing, SCBA bottles. Looking for a couple bucks there, and then
Still looking for $5,000, is that what you're looking for?
it'd be awesome. Then we got some guys going, we have a fire academy we're gonna send a handful of guys to at the end of the month. Other than that, it's pretty quiet. Yeah.
I have a comment on that request too. If we're looking at amending the water fund because of that, then we could also look at amending the fire hall fund for the year. And it could be kind of a one item, you ask for $5,000. And we could basically just add that to the budget. It's not advisable that we go over the budget without doing that.
Point being that that sum was not budgeted for.
Right. So,
So it's gonna be $15,000 altogether, right?
Yeah.
You get all the bottles you need?
Yeah. Yeah.
You go to the county yet?
Yeah, we're going, here next week. And I'm sure they have some bucks in their account, so. We're asking them for $5,000 too, and then the fire department will pick up out of their own coffers, the rest of it, so. I think it's super important, well, we have to have it, even if we have to go to the bank and get a loan, I mean, we gotta have it. It's just how it is.
And that's pretty much evidenced by the fire out here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you can't be a fire department without stuff that's.
Well, you can, you just gotta have a lot more men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicole, are you familiar with SCBA's self-contained breathing apparatus? Basically a tank and, yeah.
Piece.
Can we make a motion to look for the money?
So you can breathe.
There is one question, and I don't think anybody really understands it, so I might as well ask you if you don't mind.
Sure.
So we have our fire department district in Philipsburg, correct?
Yes.
Now, we also do, so you get your funds just for your building.
Yeah, we raise our own money.
You raise your own money for the volunteer.
Yeah,
fire.
we don't get any money for operations, no gas money, no. Back in the day, 15 years ago, we had gas cards and all the fire trucks that were city gas cards. I don't know whatever happened to that. The city always paid for the fuel, but we don't have those gas cards anymore. So we pay for our own stuff. The taxpayers pay for the building. Everything else we buy. Come to the clam feed. We raise our own money. I mean. We don't tax the city, the taxpayers for anything but the building, and that's awesome. I mean, they stepped up and
You're a little more than being volunteers then, aren't you?
Yeah, oh yeah. We raise our own money. Unlike the county, I mean, you got Valley Fire.
Yeah, what about is there
They
a county
have,
fire district, Chief Ray?
The Fort Street Fire Service area?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm pertaining to.
Usually what I do is I'll fill out a budget request and they'll write us a check for it. The ball got dropped, their board's kind of boogered up, but they're back on board. They have some money sitting in there. The last thing they bought was a $180,000 truck that they've paid off. So we let them slide until they got that, never asked them for a penny until they got that truck paid off, and we got a beautiful piece of equipment down there that, but they're building their funds back up again, and they do have a pot of money.
Where do they get their money from?
Taxes. Taxes. The county gets taxed for that. It's,
Isn't it $70 a household?
it is, it's, I think $60 for an inhabitable structure and then $10 for every outbuilding or something like that, so it's, I don't know exactly what they bring in every year, it's probably 8 or 10 grand, you know, $10,000 or $12,000 I think, but,
They
like
must get grants for their equipment then.
yeah, like I said, they bought us a brand new truck, so, and they do have it paid off, so, we'll be going at them again for some funds. But, like I said, we earn our own stuff.
No, that explains it.
Yeah.
To me. I'm glad that, do we have any
I
questions
got one
from
more.
council?
David, how much of your other equipment is coming close to expiration? Your turnout gear, your helmets, your boots. I know all that stuff now
Yeah.
has an expiration date on it, whether it's been used for one fire or none.
I think the oldest set of turnout gear that we have in there is 2008, which is pretty good. Pretty good. There were some people that used to come to the elk feed and they would write a check every year for a set of turnout gear, and that's like $2,000.
That's what I was gonna say.
2,000 times 28.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Because everything now has an expiration
It
date, right?
does. It
And I think
does.
a lot of it's on a 12-year cycle,
Yeah.
whether
those-
it's been used once or 100 times.
You know, those bottles, there's guys that are selling a 30-year bottle, and they're over $1,000. But I thought to myself, you know, if you buy a 30-year bottle, probably the rest of the gear, the mask and the regulator and stuff, is gonna be out of date. So, I thought the 15-year was the best bang for the buck. We'll visit it again in 15 years, and you know, we can go from there. We were gonna try and buy a bottle a month. I was gonna take a bill to the fire department and say, here's a $1,000 bill, and then we got to adding it up, and it's like, well, we can't, we'll be screwed. We can't do it. I mean, we got, 15 bottles or better, 16. It's just, we gotta do it, and we will do it. We'll figure out a way to do it, but.
Well, I think this cleared up a lot of our,
Do we need to have a finance committee to see if we can do what Reed said?
Can I make a motion to look into it?
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Come up with the $5,000 for the
Yeah.
fire department?
I'll second.
Hook or crook?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion that we would like to have a finance committee to look into providing the fire department with $5,000 for their scuba gear.
Let's just do that and the regular finance committee at the same time. How about that?
So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, nay? Nobody, okay. Parks update. Are you done, by the way, chief?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm done. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
This was proposed by Mr. Jim Adie, and I'm gonna let, Councilman Reddish go ahead and talked about this.
We're talking about the Parks Advisory Board.
And,
Referring
and,
to specifically?
and this,
I haven't seen that.
it's in your packet.
Well, I'd like to make one motion to withdraw my motion at the last meeting about the makeup of the board. So we tabled that motion, and I just am clear it. I think most people understand that this is the way I'm gonna look at certain things. I'm not gonna, these committees need to be a wide, we've gotta get a lot of people involved here. So we don't wanna cut anybody out. I still think that on some of these committees and boards, and it's already going on, it's okay to bring a couple of at-large members in other words, people that don't live in the town limits, but they have an influence on the town. And there's, like I said, there's plenty of those. So I'd like to make a motion to withdraw my motion from last week, or last month.
I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Okay. So I was looking at this, I guess before I start this too, and Dave, are you still the shop steward for the union?
I am.
Okay. If we pick up 2 seasonal employees, are they gonna be part,
No.
they're not part of the
No.
union plan, right?
Only if they're there for 6 months.
Okay, all right, well, that's good, that solved one question right there.
No.
Okay, so I'm proposing to get 2 employees, one full-time that we wanna get started here pretty quick, and have that person work through, mid-September or so. And then have one person who's 20 hours weekly from June 1st through August 31st. My thought is here, the part-time person can get on the garbage. In other words, that person's responsibility is gonna be downtown, these 2 parks, Bear Park and Town Hall Park, and keeping the bathroom clean at the public restroom at the rink. And then picking up the garbage there, as well as the garbage at Shakey's and the garbage at the Big Town Park. That person will be pretty much doing garbage. Now, from June 1st through August 31st, the dump is open on Sundays from 10 to 2. And my experience last year was, I had all empty trash cans Friday morning, and come Sunday morning, they were just packed, and you couldn't get any more garbage in them, and the street's packed. So really, we're gonna just have one person who takes care of garbage and downtown, and the other one would mow the big parks, but also anything John wanted done. So, there'll be all kinds of little stuff on the side, but.
Wouldn't that person be responsible to John?
Yeah.
Okay.
6 months, Jim.
6 months?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else?
If I might.
Yeah.
What Jim basically did was synopsize one of the ideas that we discussed at a park committee meeting, that was on the 29th. And the items discussed there were the park board and discussed plans to hire park help for the season that Jim just spoke about. Also the possibility of hiring the local disposal company to address some of those garbage issues possibly. This was something that we had discussed preliminarily. So the mayor is going to get in contact with the granite disposal, and we're gonna look at the cost of that and compare it to approaching it in the manner that Jim was talking about. There were no votes taken at the meeting, so I'd like to have this committee meeting, the minutes put into the general minutes for the record here. We also discussed really briefly the composition of the Park Advisory Board, of which we're going to vote on tonight. We spoke about it at length at the last working meeting. I read the letters from each individual who was interested. We're currently at 7 individuals, all of whom seem to be motivated and have individual characteristics I think that would be beneficial to the town. So I guess at this point, I would move for this council to accept the park advisory board members that have applied. If you want me to recite their names again, I will. That's all in the record on the last meeting, so,
Those were the letters you read last meeting.
yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we accept the park board's,
Got a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. So at this point, what I'll do is get together with Councilman Adie and I'll phone these folks, I'll look at their schedules, we'll define the best day to do this, and then we'll move forward into a situation where we devise this advisory committee, we put it together, get some general working agreement going, and go from there. I would like to see the first meeting happen within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I will notify these individuals, and we'll figure out a meeting, we'll post it.
Okay, have we put any ads in the paper for these jobs yet, or a job?
You're talking about for the park?
No.
Yeah.
And that was the last thing here I was gonna address. If we are, in fact, if this council feels as though this is a proper approach in terms of hiring 2 part-time people and using them, in an agreed upon method between the public works director and this council, then I would move that we put ads in the paper immediately and start the process of the hiring.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And nays? Okay.
And we would want you involved in that,
Okay,
John,
what did that just do?
when we're
What,
talking.
did you guys just create 2 positions? Or did you just approve the advertising for,
2 part-time seasonal.
You have to advertise it twice, don't we?
One full-time seasonal and 1 part-time seasonal.
that was what the motion was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're at 75% of the year through the fiscal year, and we're at approximately 38% of the budget in the parks.
Okay.
So you're gonna give them 20 hours apiece, is that what you're saying?
No, one gets 20, one gets 40.
Well, in theory.
Yeah, in theory.
We have to have a discussion about the budget on this.
Yeah, we can afford it.
I think it can be left to the executive, actually.
Yeah.
Is that your understanding of it?
The way I
think so.
kind of look at this too is the yearly town employees has got enough to do without having to take care of the parks. I mean, they got enough to do. You got some projects this summer and.
No, but we might wanna dip into the parks, employees for a little extra help, I guess.
Well,
That's what I'm thinking.
that'll be up to John, won't it?
Yeah, and I really don't wanna cross swords,
No,
non-union and union, I will not do that.
Well, they don't have to do that. If they don't
Yeah.
work for 6 months, then they don't have to, they're town employees, I mean, we use that.
Well, I think we take recommendations of the council and John. We have a plan here.
I've been
And
down
whatever,
that
whatever works, but I think we should start advertising for a position.
The
And,
grass and shakies is green.
because, things are progressing pretty fast.
Yeah, we're
So what's your,
able to-
what is your recommendation, Robert?
I think that's fine to start advertising. I think that we need to get together, maybe Reed, myself, and the mayor to put together a job description for these positions, and then maybe have that looked at by the council next meeting to approve those job descriptions. But I think we can start advertising right away if that was a motion that was just
For some reason, I think that there is some
There are
language for seasonal workers.
There is some in there.
I've got an old ad I'll
Yeah.
dig up, yeah.
Yeah, because I started on as a seasonal worker.
What we do, we do need to reference the existing model in terms of what the job description is.
We can also,
Before we change, before we just change it, we have to reference what the existing one is, and in fact, if we want to change that, then we'll have to change it in the personnel matter. Yeah, you're correct.
Correct.
Dave?
So you're gonna hire, just so I'm clear, is a 40-hour guy, and then another 20-hour guy. Why are you doing that? What's the theory on that?
Well,
Is the work not being done, or one
It
40-hour?
gets pretty heavy in the summer days.
140-hour guy can't do it, or? I mean,
my original inclination was to hire 2 people, 20 hours apiece. and share the cost. So it'd be like hiring one person full-time.
Sure.
And the only reason behind that for me was that at that point in time, I didn't know that if you were seasonal, full-time seasonal, then it wasn't incumbent upon the town to pay all the
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
extraneous stuff. So that was my original consideration about 20 and 20. But then I came to find out in our discussion that you don't have to pay into that if they're in fact seasonal full-time.
Gotcha.
So in that discussion, the seasonal, we thought, well, maybe could be a seasonal full-time person, assuming that there's enough work, and then take the 20-hour person. I'm not at all opposed to just hiring one seasonal 40-hour person.
Well, like I said,
Yeah.
I mean, the more the merrier, because we could
Yeah.
use that thing.
Right, and the other thing, my expectation too, is once we establish this park advisory board, and we start looking at a lot of numbers and a lot of prospects of how we wanna, I just see it, more time and resource going into the parks, ultimately. And maybe I'm wrong, but I wanna be prepared to be able to, as the situation develops and we get more hands-on activity in the park, that we have adequate amount of resource personnel to deal with that new interest in the park, if you will. I mean, there's a lot of maintenance stuff just in Big Park alone.
No, sure.
And my intention, when we set this board up, is to isolate Big Park out and have that the first order of business. And then downtown here, with regard to Winninghoff Park, we're gonna have a discussion about how we might have a more broad approach with Winninghoff Park in terms of it not being exclusively a park and more of a venue type situation, which I want to develop. I want to get input from this advisory board and this council about how that might progress.
Sure.
So that's where that is. And one other thing, is there anything that you've heard thus far as the clerk that raises a red flag in terms of the budgeting and what's going on right now?
We haven't even talked about how much these people would be paid. I mean,
Right.
these are things that need to be
Correct.
looked at. And
I was gonna
the
suggest,
duration and yeah.
I was gonna suggest that we look at the next finance meeting, add that on there and look and see what we can do. And then report back.
Well, I think it would be important, now there's 3 specific items on your finance meeting that has arisen in this discussion tonight. So, I would ask that maybe that meeting be done.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right. So we will get, Robert, you will get with the clerk and we'll figure out the regulatory side of defining what those jobs are. And then we'll also discuss the finance part of it with the finance committee. Maybe I'm pushing for the newspaper ad too quickly, or do we get it in there and start to, I mean, it's gotta be in there at least 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Now, why don't we just get it in?
I think we can get it in there
All
in
right.
general language and then get
yeah,
the
because you
specific
could
stuff.
really technically, you could start somebody here in the next couple of weeks.
Right,
There's all kinds of cleanup work to do.
right. And in terms of the money and not specifics necessarily, I did reference the fact that we were at 38% of what the
Yeah.
budget was, and at 75% of the time, so on that level, I think generally we're looking okay money-wise, in terms of just the park fund.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, the PIA agreement. In front of you, you should have a PIA agreement from Winninghoff Park Winter Management Agreement. We've talked about this several different times. This has been brought up as a line of business, I believe, last month or the month before. I think we've all read it. I think we all pretty much agreed that this is the way we wanted to handle this. So, I don't see anything, there's nothing new to this agreement, is that correct? This is the original agreement?
No, if our attorney has anything to input, I'd like to say very quickly, what is in this document has been being done for the last 3 years. So what we're doing is we're just listing what's already been done and the arrangements that sort of grew naturally. There's nothing essentially that's going to change from this year. And this agreement, I believe, is for 2 years.
Correct.
Okay, so we wanted it short, we could revisit it, who knows? This organization's been doing a good job, they might be going gangbusters in 2 years, they might not be around in 2 years. So, this just lists what we agreed, what the working situation that's been underway. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Not so much other than it was back and forth with the PIA quite a bit. We sat down in a room for a couple hours and drafted this, and I believe they're happy with it. And I think it works for 2 years, and then see what we want to do at that point.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the Winning Park Winter Management Agreement?
I'd like to ask just one
Yes,
question.
yes.
Okay, this doesn't deal with any kind of cost, really.
No.
The PIA, does the PIA rent the facility? Do they pay anything for it?
They do not.
They do not.
They are using it, what did we determine, about 8-10 hours a week, if that.
Okay.
And they're doing all the maintenance on the ice and everything the public gets benefit of.
Right, okay.
Okay, do I have a motion to vote on it?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Winning Park Management Agreement.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it has been agreed. Sewer lagoon, desludging. Boy, I don't even know where to go with this right now. We have spent the last 2 months reading manuals and studies and I don't know if we're any closer to coming up with a decision on what we want to do or not. We've had a couple things thrown into the mix since we met last time. We met with Mr. Vukinich this morning. We also met with our engineers. And so the sludge, the big thing, of course, is the black pine repository. Okay, that plays a part in it. The second thing is the metals play a part in it. The third thing is, what do we do with the sludge? I mean, do we haul it there or go through the process that was kind of described in the manual where we dredge it out and press it to 14% and then haul it? Or are we at a point where we actually found there's a company that has bacteria that eats sludge? And I believe the cost is what, about $58.80 for 240 packages of it?
Yeah, that would be one season's treatment.
One season.
I would probably suggest half of that again to expedite the process. As long as we're putting it in, we might as well put half again as much in.
So that's kind of where we're at. We're do you want to maybe?
Essentially, we have a choice to make to address the sludge in the lagoon. Very briefly, the process that was considered originally was to have the lagoon dredged, and then the sludge because of the heavy metal content we discovered cannot be land applied, and so it have to be taken to a repository. And in the process of putting this together, there was a notion that it could be taken to Black Pine, the mine repository that they're now finalizing right now. There was a time window on that to have it moved up there. It had to be before September. We have a $300,000 grant associated with the dredging and the removal of the sludge up to Black Pine. Preliminary estimates on that process are about $750,000, which would encumber us for an additional $450,000 on top of the $300,000. Those are estimates to remove this sludge, dry it out to a 14% moisture content, and then move it up to this repository, which is approximately a 24-mile round trip. The fact that the state would allow us to put it at this repository, there was background work done on this with the state, communications between the old administration, and the state was signing off on that. But again, we're under a time constraint with this. Now, the flip side of all this is we don't have the $450,000 right now. We would have to figure out how to finance this. There was reference before to some existing money, perhaps $100,000 to $150,000 existing from our outfall line loan. We talked very preliminarily about the possibility of rolling that into the next phase of our lagoon process. So perhaps we could get $100,000 out of that. We're still well short of that. Again, we'd have to go through the process of finding the financing, doing all of the preliminary work to put the budget together and the contract together to have this process undertaken. All that would have to be done in the next 3 to 6 weeks. if we were gonna follow that route based on the timeline of Black Pine, the security at Black Pine. Now, here's the problem with, for the situation, is primarily with the heavy metals. Again, we can't just disperse the stuff because of that. So whatever we do to the sludge, in terms of moving it, we have to account for those metals. If we don't move it in this time window, if we figure out we wanna take this biological augmentation process and forget about moving it now, and perhaps if we apply this augmentation material in a couple of years, we may end up with half of the sludge. So we have half of the volume. This is a supposition by me. I don't know that this is the case. So real quickly here. So the question is, do we want to try to fast track this, find the additional approximately $500,000 to do this process all in the next 2 months? Or do we let that possibility of using black pine go away and let the $300,000 go away and start this augmentation process, which would be a 3-step situation where we would measure the sludge, figure out what was going on in terms of content and volume, and then begin the process of adding this augmentation material.
That's the bugs in a bag?
Yes, sir. That's what that is.
So, I mean, if you're saying that, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're saying to add the bugs in a bag basically is what I call it, the
Yeah.
bioluminescence or whatever
Right.
it's called, but, so you're saying that the lagoon, there's no bugs in the lagoon? The way
No.
I was taught was, if your lagoons are dead, you can buy the bugs in a bag to regenerate your lagoons. I don't believe that those lagoons are dead. They're working, the bugs are doing the best they can. I don't know where, you're not, the bugs aren't gonna get rid of the metals,
Correct.
are they?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, we understand that.
Right, and so that's,
And they're not gonna get rid of any grit that's there.
yeah.
The lagoons are working well.
They work.
They are working very well, but what we're trying to do is increase the depth of the activity zone. Removing the sludge will give us more water zone where everything is working. I mean,
So I guess just so I understand, so you're talking about get rid of the sludge and rebuilding,
no,
Yeah, I don't know.
this is a whole new.
you're gonna add the bugs and try not to have to remove.
There's a
Correct.
whole new family of
Okay.
bacteria, bugs, whatever you wanna call them, that we're gonna be adding to the lagoon to reduce the sludge blanket. And I've talked to the DEQ, I've talked to Lisa K. Keene, who is our lagoon inspector, and she has no problem with it. And I also asked her specifically, and to some of you, that I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but I think it needs to be said. There is no one that has told us we have to remove the sludge. Physically remove it. And my fear is that with a dredging, a vacuum, if you will, is going to foul the lagoon. And it's gonna stir it up. And it may take a year or a year and a half for it to settle back down and start operating again. But this is this is your decision to make. And
Okay, it's, the heavy metals are an issue.
Sure.
The presumption is that you desludge it, and in the process of that, you remove the accumulation of heavy metals in there, you take it to the repository. The other perspective on this is, the heavy metals are in there, they're not going anywhere. They're, in a sense, that's acting like a repository. The only negative that I can see is that you're adjacent to the creek. So if there was an event, some sort of massive event, that would not be a good thing. Right now, I can tell you, if we go down this process and we say to the engineers in the state, we're gonna use this biological augmentation to try to diminish our sludge levels so we can increase our water cap, we're gonna leave the bottom of the lagoon intact, and we're gonna let the heavy metals stay there, contained within the lagoon. Because ultimately, our plan is to do no harm, and to try to get these exceedances down to a acceptable level without completely redoing the lagoons. Now, the question is, will the state allow us to proceed in this manner? Or will they turn around and say, you have to get rid of those heavy metals? John's indicating from his preliminary questions that they can't force us to do that necessarily.
Sure.
So again, that with the augmentation process, would be trying to diminish the sludge through the bacteria, and then ultimately addressing the E. coli with either UV or chlorination or something like that, since that is like one of the main exceedances that we get consistently.
Sure.
And look at it as a three-step process, because we are very close. In most of these tests, we're pretty close, even with
Yeah.
the mess that's down there.
Correct.
So I guess the point is that the question is, which process do we want to do? And ultimately, if we don't go immediately to this black pine repository and go through the process of desludging in the next 3 months, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to have to address it 5, 10 years from now. I don't know, I can't answer that.
So are you gonna do a whole new study on the sludge that's in the lagoon?
What we're gonna do is look at it, use a sludge judge.
It's
and
been
find-
done.
Right, and we're gonna see
Three times.
we're gonna see what's going on currently.
And there's been volume over the last 5 years.
I mean,
Right, the last
And
time
we
we
need to know how
done.
much is out there.
2012 was the studies I looked at.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, good.
And so,
Yeah.
in terms of dosage with this and application, we have to get some sort of current idea of the volume of what we're dealing with, is my
And
understanding.
background information, background.
Right,
of-
right, if we were to pursue that.
The other thing to the audience is that these microbes they put in also have an effect on the ammonia, which is another limit that we're gonna be looking at.
Sure.
Ammonia, odor, water
Yeah,
clarity.
Yeah, ammonia, odor,
Sure.
water clarity, but otherwise, anything to do with the metals, we understand that they are there. My thinking is that we leave them there, I really do. I think we leave them there, don't touch them, and see what the DEQ says. I mean, if they say we can't do this, we can't do it. I mean, it's that simple, right?
So do you actually think that by adding, do you think that you can grow a better bed of anaerobic bacteria than what you have? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I think they're different bacteria.
Yeah, they're totally
Yeah.
different
I mean, I'm
families.
not a scientist, but I go to the water schools every year. But there's aerobic and anaerobic.
Right, and I don't know what kind these are, so that'd be something that we need to check into.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
To me, just sitting here, it's a no-brainer, because you say 4 to 6 weeks, come up with $500,000, you're not gonna do it. And
Well,
I don't think DEQ, I don't know where the heavy metals are coming from, but I think heavy metal means they're laying in the bottom of the sludge, and if you have bugs that can eat the sludge, and you increase the ability to increase your water flow through the inline, you know, you're doing the best that you can. You know, I don't know if you've had the chance to read the draft manual that came out from the nutrient working group. I mean, it tells you in there again that, you know, the lagoons still are iffy, and they talk about the phosphorus, the BOD, the TSA, all that stuff. They don't give you any answers as yet, they're working on it. But when the previous council was looking at mechanical treatment plants, I don't remember anybody talking about the reduction of heavy metals coming into lagoons.
well,
Where are they coming from?
Okay, I think I can answer that, Carl. It's been years and years that outfall line
Right.
has been taking on groundwater.
Okay.
And our groundwater is full of those heavy metals. And so what happens, it goes and gets to the lagoon and it settles out on the floor of the lagoon.
Well, that's an argument for using the bugs, that hopefully with the inflow line being repaired, you're not gonna have as much heavy metal deposition in the lagoons, and so it's a good thing to try it.
when
Because you can't afford another $1 million.
when they put that package together for the Biolac, they were about
Right.
6.5 million right in there,
Yeah.
and we know it would have been more than that. Now, having said that, decommissioning the lagoons was a secondary process that wasn't even in the original 6.5 million. That was
Yep.
another process.
Yep.
The Biolac was gonna go in the field, and then those lagoons were gonna be decommissioned. And RPA put together an engineering report for costs and analysis to decommission those lagoons. Well, in point of fact, the biggest thing that has changed beyond not doing a mechanical plant is we're not gonna decommission the lagoons.
No.
That's, in terms of ultimately, the way I look at it, I'd like to get them out of there, but if they're there and we're not gonna decommission the lagoons, then they're an existing repository, and we should focus on the sludge.
That's right.
It's the cheapest way we can
Yeah.
treat wastewater is with a lagoon. You know, the operational costs, I think you looked at with the Biolac plant was absurd.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was.
know how we would have been
It
able
was,
to afford
O&M
that.
on that was 280,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we know that, that's, wastewater under the bridge.
Yeah.
But, so that's where this is sitting, so we need to hear from this council, in terms of
So really,
process.
so really then there's, at this point, the metals are not such an issue as long as they're not gonna run out into the creek and the bugs are going to eat the sludge down so that we can.
Basically, yes,
the-
yeah, we're past the limits in
Okay,
Philipsburg,
then-
right?
right,
I mean,
right,
with
and-
those heavy metals.
We are doing, David's doing with other crew members, they're checking metals quarterly, upstream, downstream, and our effluent. Along with ammonia that is leaving the lagoon.
Town itself in a 2-mile area was built on approximately 750,000 cubic yards of tailings. So prior to 1960, the sewers, the outflow of each individual sewer went into Camp Creek and directly into Flint Creek. So those metals and the metals are leaching through everything, including there was probably tailings that were used for pipe bedding, for example. They were everywhere. And after 1960, they stopped being dispersed into the creek and they began to accumulate in the lagoons. Between 1960 and 1970, there was also regular water and runoff and storm drain, and then in massive infiltration from 1960 till now, that also amassed metals in there. So the metals are everywhere. I don't know, we could get those metals out of there, and in 10 years,
You'll be back.
Back.
you know, I can't imagine it would be as severe, but I think that's a product of where we live and the history of where we live.
Just one quick question, how much has the inflow in the lagoons increased since you repaired that line?
How much has it decreased?
Yeah, you don't have, I'm assuming, no leakage anymore.
Probably somewhere around 120 to 160 gallons a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And prior to that, to placing the new line in there,
Well, we're averaging what, David? Somewhere around 60 to 85 gallons a minute
Yeah,
going through the solar manhole.
depending on what time of day, I mean,
Yeah.
67 when people are getting up and showering, and then it'll drop off and then pick back up
It
again.
drops down to like 35 at,
Yeah.
night.
Chris, you raised your hand?
If there's no answer, don't waste any time on it. Based upon previous sampling of the sludge, do we have percentages of what's organic versus non-organic? Sand versus sludge?
I think, yeah.
That's really what we have to determine. That's really what we have.
That's the question to your bugs right there.
Well,
A stormwater runoff system that used to empty into lagoons. If it's all sand, bugs aren't gonna do you any good.
but it's, yeah, I would find it hard to believe from the sampling that we've done, almost 2 years ago now, that it's that much sand and grit. Yeah.
And the other thing is, we're one of the last towns in Montana that has lagoons that have no aeration. And bioremediation is proven technology, and whether you wanna look at anaerobic systems or aerobic systems, I think there's options out there that are a lot less expensive than $750,000. Doesn't mean they won't have to be cleaned eventually, but that goes back to how much is sand, how much is sludge.
Sure.
And why would we spend 700,000 if we can spend 7,000 and get the bugs in?
And then
It doesn't
spend
make any,
another,
as Carl said, it's a no-brainer.
and then spend another 75,000 on some aerators.
The bugs, they are specifically targeted to bring our levels down into compliance, right?
Sludge, yeah.
the sludge, and what Mr. Cooney's referring to is there's potentially part of the sludge, there's a percentage of sand and grit and other things that they won't affect.
Exactly. So is there any idea, or we just? make
Well,
a-
with the sampling that John's suggesting now that we do, we would get an idea of what sand is there. what gravel's there, we'd pick that up with a sampling, right, John?
And understand too that we have approximately from where I live about 2.3 miles down to the lagoon that of water, of sewer line, along with our new 3,000 foot outfall line. There's potential, or should be the potential, if there is any sand, that you would start seeing deposits in the manholes, in the pipeline itself. And I really don't see that. I didn't see that even in the old line. What I saw was the infiltration, serious infiltration and inflow through the tops of the manholes, through the joints. So I'm pretty optimistic that most of what's out there is going to be sludge, organics.
That the bugs would eat.
They must be a different breed of bug then.
Yeah, they are.
Well, we have to send them
You know
a
what I mean?
we have to send them a 1 gallon sample so they can recommend the best ones to eat our sludge.
And we've just looked into this, yeah, I mean, we haven't had a huge amount of time to ask specific questions about the bugs and all we looked at, David, was basically this pamphlet that Julian had right there. What is that?
Well, there has been some phone calls made also.
Yes.
You spoke to the state, and what is her name? Excuse me, Gina?
Lisa K. Keene.
Okay, and she mentioned that this augmentation process is used around the state.
She has several systems that are using it, yeah, that are lagoon systems, facultative lagoon systems.
Facultative,
Yeah.
which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
What's the cost? I mean, how many bags and what would be the cost?
$5,800 for 240 bags, and that would be our.
That would be the threshold, that's kind of the threshold, if we want to give
They
it
like
a
pH,
push.
they like pH, Carl, of 6 to 9, so. Well, here's what I'd like to do is I think we need to have another meeting of the minds here before we go to the engineer and
We need to think about this pretty quick, because we're,
Well, let me ask this question then. In terms of meeting the deadline and removing the sludge through the process of dredging and taking it to black pine, what is the consensus on that? Is that consensus not to proceed in that manner?
I would think so.
I would think so.
I'm on that path too.
Now, obviously there was a time constraint with that based on Black Pine's timing. What I don't wanna do is I don't wanna lose momentum on this. If we don't have an artificial time constraint like the Black Pine cutoff, then we need to act very quickly on this. Number one, I would suggest that we do contact the engineer and maybe we don't tell him specifically what we wanna do, but we need to tell him what we're not gonna do.
right.
Which is, if that is in fact what we're not gonna do. He needs to know, as soon as possible, that the whole notion of black pine is not going to happen.
Well, we could do that by letter, couldn't we?
Yeah, or email.
I mean, every
Call
time
right
you
now.
call them, it costs a couple $100.
Now you're thinking.
The meter's running.
Same with emails too.
Yeah.
Reed has that.
Robert says
What is
they're
the
lower than
timeline
lawyers.
on getting
works, yeah.
something quantifiable that proves that this alternative solution can work?
Well, the first treatment is 6 months long, but you're going to start seeing results probably in about half that time, in 3 months. Once you start the process, you'll start seeing water clarity, you're gonna lose odors, and hopefully we're gonna start losing sludge depth. Initially, the sludge gets, if you will, fluffed up by the organics, from the organics, but also from the bacteria, and then it will start to digest it and go down.
They must have some references in regards to being
Yeah.
established. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's not like it's a, overnight company that comes in and it's gone the next day.
Okay. But then also, Chris mentioned this organic versus non-organic. How quickly can we determine that?
Should have good data from your 2012 study.
Yes.
I think there is.
Engineered and tested.
I'll look at that. I'm pretty sure there was what you referred to in there.
I've taken them out there 3 times in the 10 years that I've been there and drilled holes in the ice and used the sludge dead, so I know the data's there. I know
But it
it's
tells,
there.
it
It's just
doesn't necessarily
this
tell you,
timing of all of this.
it
is
doesn't
very-
tell you the composition, it tells you what's in as far as metals.
So what do
That's
we
all
need-
I've seen.
Okay, so what do we need to do to get this composition?
We need to, take a sample and send it to the lab.
They've never done
And
that?
apparently they have never done that. Now, Stanley, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that they've analyzed, in other words, sand silt ratio or anything like that.
They've
Just
ran it
metals.
through pantyhose, they've ran it through screens, I've seen it.
Reference that in there.
I
Yeah.
think they have, yes.
They have, I've seen it.
They
does the
have,
pantyhose
find it
test?
for me,
Okay.
find it, let's find it.
It
I'll
sounds
find
really
it.
official.
Yeah, I'll find it for you.
And one final question: when does the AOC? What is that deadline? Because everyone just needs to be thinking about all these times of when all of this is
Right.
laid out.
Right.
When is that
That's-
when is the deadline for that? When
End
do
of
we have to
17.
be within spec?
In 2017, which is this year. We have to be able to demonstrate that we're moving toward compliance.
Specifically, Daniel, it's June of 17.
Yeah, it's coming right up.
on us. Yeah,
Right, and this, but this is, now remember, this is an extended OAC. That's been,
this is
So is
second
that-
one,
is
yeah.
it the second or third time? for the-
Second one.
It's the second extension on it. And when we met with the DEQ last year, John Arrigo said, you have to do something. I have to be able to take something up to my boss. And that's when we told him we will do the outfall line. And that way we're meeting the requirement of demonstrating that we're moving toward compliance, which has been my contention for 10 years. You can't get to compliance. The object is to have a good faith effort toward compliance. Now, what I just described would probably be more acceptable to the state if we turned around and dredged the thing and took that stuff up to Black Pine. That would be even a bigger example of attempted compliance. I guess the idea here is that as long as we proceed with this bioaugmentation and figure out if we can diminish the sludge, but we have to tell them, obviously, that the metals aren't going anywhere, and I think to me that's the unknown. Even though there's been word that, they can't make us remove them. But I've heard that before, so we could go down this path only to find out that they're gonna put the hammer down through the OAC. I don't know what the outcome of that will be, but it's existing and it's right around the corner.
I think, Daniel, you remember that in that AOC and in our permit, we have limits that we have to adhere to. We have to meet those limits. Currently, we are meeting every limit except during the winter, the E. coli. And that's my understanding. That's the performance that they're looking for. As long as we meet the requirements of the permit, they'll leave us alone.
Right, and again, I've been reestablishing this idea of showing them the data before we make the request. In addition to making the request, making the request, you say, here's all these months of data. Look at the data that's accumulated post outfall line and see what's going on. And like Mr. Rugen has just indicated, the E. coli has been an ongoing issue, and of course they're all tore up on this ammonia thing too eventually. So if we can get beyond the sludge and engage in this process, then we just need to indicate to them, now we're going to address the E. coli, since that is the one exceedance that's consistent, and that would be done in some UV or chlorine or something like that. Even the mess down there, we're really close to meeting.
And as I said earlier today, that it's only during the winter months that we'd have to run the UV or chlorine with a reduction of the chlorine through carbon, or we'd have to do ozone. I'm not a fan of ozone. UV is probably the simplest, but we wouldn't have to run it all year long.
Is it similar to the odor you get out of Georgetown in the spring?
Somewhat
A
hydrogen
little more
sulfide,
riper.
yeah.
A little more riper.
A little riper. Yeah.
Yeah. I smelt it today and it's not real.
It's
Carl?
getting better.
Real quick, I hear what Dan is saying, but to me, in reading the draft pamphlet that came out, lagoons are still a big issue. The DEQ doesn't know what the standards are. They'll admit that they can't get there's nothing that can get the standards that are proposed. And there is, the thing that I hope that you stress is the affordability of towns to come into compliance. Philipsburg cannot do it. You are demonstrating that you did the inflow line, you're gonna try and do the bugs in the bag, and that should be sufficient to continue getting our permit. I mean, they can't force you into buying something that's not affordable. I mean, we could turn around and sue them for that. But I think using all those available things to keep on showing, demonstrating that we're trying our best should be good enough.
I agree.
You know, and I think the plan that you have is simple. You know, we know the affordability of the town, we know the income, you've done this in the past, this is what you wanna do. We don't want $750,000, we want $5,000. We're gonna monitor this, here's the sand component, here's the real component. How can they turn you down? You're doing your best, so.
Makes sense to me.
So what do you wanna do on this? You wanna,
Well, I think we need to contact the engineer and let
Yeah.
him know what our intention is, if that is in fact the intention of the council, to pursue the bioaugmentation and go from there, but we need to approach the engineer and tell them this is what we're going to do, so figure it out.
And we should ask them for that spreadsheet or their graphs of our outfall.
okay.
They
so-
have that,
so-
they have all that information, and Jeff Wagner was telling me he has it in a graph form.
Well, we can certainly call the engineer tomorrow, so we have a little bit more
Okay.
idea of what,
Well, like I said, we know that consensus is we aren't gonna go down this path, we're gonna attempt to try this other mechanism, so I think we should get a hold of him tomorrow and let him know that we need to start the process, and meet with him and our public works director, who, you can list what your concerns are and the specific data that you want. So we'll tell him that, and then we'll arrange a meeting. I would like to meet with him pretty soon.
yes. So is that the consent of the council for us to
Yep.
go that direction?
Yep.
Okay, that's the direction we're going. All right, let's go ahead and go to property tax options. This is Councilman Johnson's little bag. Do you want to just explain to council?
No bugs.
No bugs.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research, and I've got a couple different avenues. I'm still waiting for some information that the mayor is getting for me from the state municipal league or whatever it is actually called. And I'd like to have the authority to establish some sort of a committee to help me in regards to the research and coming up with a good plan in regards to property and or, Dan can help me in regards to what that gentleman said the other day. What was that acronym he used?
TIF,
Tax
increment?
Increment
financing. Or there's SID, which is Special Improvement District.
Yeah.
Or there's other methodology. Let's just back up here for a second. The gist of what you want here is to explore broadening the tax base.
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
And
Establishing the tax base.
and what your notion is that perhaps the vehicle toward that lies in the property tax or an approach to the property tax? That's a part of it.
Partially.
That's a part of
Yes,
it. Okay.
partially.
Okay. So you're requesting a committee be put together to explore,
Alternatives.
okay.
Right.
You want to make a motion on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to establish a committee to look at the property tax options, including broadening and establishing the tax base.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we'll get her done.
Good. Okay.
Okay, weed control.
Is that a council committee?
Yes.
So do you want to assign folks to that?
Okay, who would like to be on that committee? I'll be on it.
I'll be on it.
Us two.
Okay.
Okay, weed control. Really, this isn't, this is a topic that we decided that we needed to get a grip on. And so what we've done is looked at the possibility of having somebody else spray weeds. I know the county is looking at 2 people to spray weeds. This is just a discussion on how we want to approach the weed control around town and in the big park. We have a toad flax, we've got Russian knapweed, Polish knapweed, cinquefoil, all kinds of nice stuff.
Well, didn't we have had a contract with the county for them to spray alleys and spray the parks? I know they come and do a rudimentary job down at the shop,
That is correct.
about $3,500.
I think it was 24 last year.
24?
I don't know.
That was the
offhand,
number
but
that
yeah,
we
I can.
threw out.
That
When
I
we
said
were-
the other day.
Yes,
Yeah.
when we were exploring what the process was in the recent past, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
And the weeds were so bad last year, I guess this sort of motivated the conversation about the weeds.
Yeah.
And, again, I think there was an assumption made that nobody was spraying the weeds, it just sort of went by the wayside, and in fact, we did bill, or the county did bill us for 2,400, so I guess it'd be just getting on top of what they're doing and organize some plan with them.
And I think it's a lost cause.
Excuse me, assuming that we
Yeah.
continue in that way. The lost cause?
I think it's a lost cause if we don't enforce private property owners to take care of their own weeds. I mean, you're just,
Or assist them in getting the job done, perhaps. I mean, do we have an ordinance in regards to private property owners spraying for weeds?
I'd have to look that up.
If we don't, we can't, what are we gonna enforce?
Well, all I'm saying is maybe we need to have an ordinance.
Okay.
I suspect there is, but there's no.
I believe that there is.
I believe there is too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there is.
Because it doesn't make sense to spray, you gotta spray everything.
Yeah.
Or take care of everything, otherwise you're just contaminating it time after time.
My experience with the county out of the big town park the last few years is every now and then they show up and they spray part of the park.
They spot spray.
Yeah, they spot spray and then they leave and they don't actually finish the park, they just kind of drive through.
They do a lot of driving.
They do a lot of driving, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything towards the county, that needs to be mean or anything, but what I am saying is, if we go with the county again, we gotta have some kind of log at least to know,
Absolutely.
what days they showed up and, because, I mean, I remember trying to keep up with the knapweed and everything else back there, and it's a mess,
Why
all
don't you get
around.
ahold of your local extension agent, have him come down and talk to the town about what kind of weeds we got, what it would take, how much we're getting paid, or they're getting paid to spray. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a weed guy.
Well, I'll be glad to talk to the commissioners, because we do have a interlocal agreement with the county. So why don't you let me, I'll get put on the next, would you put me on the next commissioner's agenda, please, and then I'll report back about the weeds.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Sounds good.
It used
Okay.
to- Quick,
I'm sorry?
it used to be in the past, I remember, there is an ordinance.
Yeah,
But you used to come down here and, we would get a bottle and take that and everything's fresh. You can't do that anymore.
If we do something along those lines.
Well, we could, but we can't.
Yeah.
We went
get
through
through.
that.
Okay.
They were putting it in water bottles, they were
Right.
putting in all kinds of things, not labeled, no safety data sheet, nothing. And I put the kibosh to that. I said, no, we're not doing that anymore. A kid could get a hold of that and say, whoa, it looks like apple juice, or it looks like iced tea, and they take a big drink and they're done. So I don't wanna be in the weed dealer selling business.
Yeah.
I know.
Off the charts.
I think it's an insurance nightmare too, quite honestly.
Probably.
you know.
Don't go there again.
I mean, I used to fill the bottles, I remember, you know, they're, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and go on to our new business. We have Mr. Chris Cooney here. And would you just give us a little background what you're looking at, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. A couple of new faces, so hopefully your co-members there could share the handout I supplied 2 weeks ago. To give you a geographic orientation, if you're standing at Winghoff Park, looking to the south up the hill there, at the terraces, the yurt of Todd and Mary Frank is a very prominent feature there. And as you pan your gaze right towards the west, there's a brown house with some trees. That's where my wife Kathy and I live. That particular area is one old mining claim that is the Schneppel addition to the city of Philipsburg. It consists of 2 city blocks that basically were split by a street that you've never heard of called Belmont Street, because it's never been built. There are no city utilities on it. It's never been utilized by the public. Prior to our acquisition of the property we have, the the south half of Belmont Street was abandoned. So my wife Kathy and I now own basically 3 sides of Belmont Street, and I want to build a garage. And so I am asking for the council to abandon the remainder of Belmont Street between blocks 1 and 2 of the Schneppel addition. It would be a parcel that's approximately 40 feet wide and 116 feet long. The benefit to the city is going to be they don't have to spray weeds on it, and somebody else pays property taxes for it.
That was good.
Yeah, so, Mr. Madoff, the one question I have is I'm not very familiar with the abandonment process for real property that's owned by a municipality. I'm somewhat familiar with what happens in Buttes over Bow. I have no idea whether or not there would be some Montana Code annotated, some MCA, or some administrative rules in Montana, some ARMs that may apply to this.
There are.
There are, okay.
Not so much in the administrative rules, but in the
MCAs. I suspected there would be. And so that's where Kathy and I are more than willing to pay all of the costs associated. For example, I know there's gonna have to be legal notice published.
Yep.
And then, of course, preparation of documents and blah, blah, blah. We certainly don't want the town to have to spend money out of hand, that we're more than willing to pay those associated expenses. And what I really need to know is what, and I'm sure you guys do too, and gals, excuse me, is what the process is and how it works.
Got a couple statutes here, I'll make copies for you.
Awesome.
So 7/14/41/14, procedure to discontinue streets says basically you have a petition in writing from all owners of lots on the street, which in this case I believe because of the abandonment of the other house or other half we have, the council may choose to abandon that street, needs to publish notice pursuant to another statute here, and then they can choose to discontinue that street or not. I suppose once it's discontinued, it's still town property, so then we get into another statute here, 7-8-4201, disposal or lease of municipal property. Basically gives the council and whatnot the authority to sell, dispose of, or donate or lease any property belonging to the city or town through a process here that's basically just a vote of, I believe, 2/3 of the council, 2/3 vote of all members of the council. So that would be the process. As far as sell, dispose of, donate, that's obviously up to you all, so.
Your surveyor came out at, who did your?
Anaconda.
Anaconda.
Have we decided whether we wanna just give this gentleman his property, or you want him to buy it?
Well, we did talk to Mr. Cooney about that, and we said, you know, this is a nice, it's not a great lot, but it is a lot and it's big. Would you be able to reimburse us something for that? And we did not know at that time what the code was, or, right, Mr. Cooney? But we did talk about that today.
One other possible option, I was just looking at the 1988, I believe, ordinance that you had given us, or that ballpark. That was done with a exchange of property, so that would be one other option to consider, but I don't know if that would work out in this situation.
Do you have any property you want to exchange?
No,
Not
not
really.
unless you want something in Butte. I've got 6 or 7 lots for sale in there.
This is the parcel you want.
Everything in yellow I own.
Oh, okay, all right. I
So
guess I didn't
everything in
realize.
yellow is,
Yeah, everything
Okay,
yellow
okay,
is-
Kathy,
Yeah.
you were Kathy,
and the fuchsia is.
is the outline.
Is the street.
We went up there and looked at it today, and he showed us around, and so we got a pretty good. So I guess, council, I think what would probably be the best thing to do here is just let Robert have a little bit more time to kind of figure out what we wanna do here.
Frankly, yeah, I don't believe it's up to me, it's what you all wanna do, if we do wanna go ahead and discontinue that street, we just need to do the public notice would be the next step in that process, and then for the council to determine if there's any.
We're doing the street and the alley, right? You want the alley
Leave that
abandoned?
up to you guys. If you want the alley, you know, Robert, I don't know what the legalities are of using some sort of bounded by or extension thereof. Legal description, it's not a subdivision, so it should be, it should be able to file it.
Is that alley part of that utility, access or easement?
The alley has nothing in it that I know of. There is the natural gas line that's referenced in the original, abandonment of and of course, that easement's filed. It's of record, so there's nothing I can do.
Well, yeah, we can't give you the easement. I mean, we could, but
It won't-
we probably wouldn't hold up.
Yeah, exactly. Be as good as a quick-
Pursuant to the
quick-
statute, the easement stays in place.
I have a question for the council. Is there anyone sitting on this council that absolutely does not wanna do this, give this, or convey this?
I don't have.
Does anyone have total opposition to?
I'm not opposed to it, I just think, fair, compensated in some way. You know,
Well, it's gonna start paying taxes on that land, and that is a full city lot. Or it's actually a little bigger than a city lot, so.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe.
we're taking land that we own that we can't use, and
I think you'll find out the amount the city's getting for the property taxes isn't very much on that piece of property.
No, I imagine the tax would probably be about $60 a year.
Yeah.
And we'd get 20% of that, so we're talking maybe $12 or something.
okay.
It's 25%.
Okay, well, we have, how about?
Yeah, I'm not against it, I just think, fair market value or whatever, or some type of agreement, maybe, yeah. I'm not against it at all.
Councilman Mill, what's your thoughts on it?
I like Mr. Cooney's mentioning we don't have to worry about the weeds there and the potential for property tax, so.
Those are two things. Julie, Councilman Ritchie.
I don't really have any objection myself.
Councilman Johnson?
No objection.
No objection.
Okay, so I think where we're leaving this is that we would go for the abandonment of that property, but we would want to be compensated somehow.
Within and you probably don't have, I know like both Anaconda and Butte have, policies in place regarding like a development proposal. Does the town of Philipsburg have any ordinances that you know of, or are we just gonna make this up as we go?
I don't believe there's an ordinance here that would handle this anyway. Are you proposing some sort of a development?
No, I'm just saying, how do we, okay, so the council members sitting there have to protect the public interest in the town of Philipsburg. And so I heard them mention fair market value. Just so you know, I purchased lot 1 by writing a letter in the blind for $5,000. Probably could have got it for less. cause he got it for 465, but I wanted to make sure he took my offer. So, those are the numbers. This big parcel with the abandoned portion of Belmont Street, it used to have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, double-wide trailer with a nice addition and a porch on it. I paid $50,000 for that. And that was 5 city lots with a habitable structure that made $600 a month in rent. So how do you establish the fair market value, or do you put it up for auction, or do you ask for development proposals? That's gonna be, obviously, phase 1 is a yes/no vote. Phase 2.
Well, we gotta take into consideration, you're already an existing resident, you're trying to improve property, and it's not like you're some yahoo coming in from Butte just to buy a lot to park a car on or something, you know? And certainly that's part of the consideration.
And an auction certainly is an option, but we have, an appraisal would be a good way to get the property value. Yeah, or really whatever agreement makes sense would be fine here as well. I don't believe we're bound to have an appraisal in this case.
So what I'm hearing here is there is a general consensus that we're not opposed to abandoning the house, okay? Can we leave it at that for right now, and
I
then,
think we could, probably the next step to pursue would be to get the notice published and take this up at the next meeting to discontinue the street, at which time the town would still own it, and then from there we would move to dispose of that discontinued street.
Makes sense.
would that work for you?
Absolutely. I was hoping that would be, I'm well aware that there's the process that needs to be followed. I don't know if legal notice needs to be published once or 3 times, or, that's, your attorneys, needs to supply you some input on that. I would ask Reed, when he publishes that notice, to keep, get a separate bill. I'd be happy to compensate the city for that. And then it sounds like he has a system, to vote to abandon, still own it.
Okay.
Then you got phase 2, then we move on to phase 3 of what is fair.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
I think so.
Okay, time is, we're getting close to the 9 o'clock hour here, so I'd like to kind of wrap this up. I do want to tell you guys that I am
Which is
going
how
to
long?
meet
We
with
get it by Friday.
the Senate tomorrow.
I'll give you that.
Okay, yeah.
No, Thursday, and talk about the gas tax. And, I've had several suggestions on what to bring forth to them, make it very brief first of all, and just tell the facts. So, what I plan on doing is giving the facts how much gas money we do receive that hasn't been, renewed and hasn't been raised in 30 years. Our roads are crumbling. We have a Forbes 500, establishment that has dirt roads to it that need to be repaired constantly. We have a lot of other businesses outside of town, and we have one of the largest counties in town, so it's gonna be very brief.
Is Dan gonna be able to go with you?
I won't tell her tomorrow.
So anyway, I am gonna do that.
Maybe go ahead.
Considering time, does anybody else have anything that's pressing needs?
Are you waiting for me to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I am.
I just have one thing going on here.
Okay.
Was there,
Excuse me.
was a possible request to close the street over there?
Oh,
on the
yeah.
corner?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the individual that was
Yeah.
inquiring wasn't here tonight, so
Yeah, it was,
we're just gonna let that lay until we hear from them again?
maybe you could put it to the mayor's discretion
Right?
if she met individually with him.
Everybody's aware here that we go through an annual process where we close the street for Flume Creek Dally Days, for the car show, and so on and so forth. The folks always are good about coming in and requesting it, which is the normal process. And on occasion, not regarding those specific things, but something else might happen. The brewery might have a concert up on the side street or something like that. They might want to close that part for 4 hours or what have you. Sometimes they'll come in and they just miss the agenda, but yet their event is going to be before the next meeting. So in those particular instances, I would move that we would allow the chief executive to make that to confer with our public works director to identify the location and, allow the chief executive to make that decision, if there's a time constraint.
I'll second that.
You mean the mayor?
Yes,
I'll second that motion. You said a
Along,
motion?
along with notifying the sheriff and the.
correct, all the requisite
And the
votes.
fire.
Everybody who needs, and the process would be exactly how it is normally, except that the mayor would have the discretion to do it on a shorter notice.
Sure.
That is my motion.
I will second the motion.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Okay,
What's this specifically?
this is just, they're having dance up here by the brewery, and they wanna close that
On the
street
14th, John.
on the
First.
first.
Schnepple?
Yeah.
Or not Schnepple, I'm sorry, Sanson.
right up.
Sampson.
Yeah, across Broadway, just on the hillside, for the first block.
And the flat?
Yeah, it does, and it's the 14th, and it's some live music essentially. Kathy from the brewery came over, but she was behind the timeline on the agenda.
It was the day
I
after.
do
I'd-
believe it will be Sunday, Easter Sunday, the 16th,
Oh, and-
from 3 PM until 6 PM.
oh, you have the info there.
And so I personally, it's gonna be Yama, the reggae band from Detroit. And it's also, not only Easter, it's gonna be Kathy Smith's birthday party.
Cool.
Well, you're like the rep here. Well, that's good. I haven't spoken to her personally, and I just got
And
to
so,
find out
and then,
that story.
this Sunday is my wife Kathy's 50th birthday party, and Ryan, Chris, and the crew will be set up in the first 3 parking spots in front. But for the big reggae band and Kathy's party, they're thinking the street
Gotcha.
might be more.
And that's the 16th?
Sunday.
Sunday.
Yes.
Easter Sunday. and
Easter
J-
Sunday,
and it's
we're gonna
Yama,
have, we're gonna
Yama
have
Griffin.
tie-dyed shirts and reggae music
Cool.
on Easter
That's what
Sunday
you're
in
getting.
Philipsburg, Montana. How
We are
can you
now.
get any
We're heading
crazier than
way-
that?
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is officially adjourned at 9:07 PM on the 4th of April.
Thanks, Councilman, thanks, Mayor.
You're welcome, thank you.
Dave.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks. You guys too. Thanks.
Yeah.
Goes both ways.
Yeah, once I get going though, sometimes I can't stop. You could hire me back, John.
Hey Julian, I need that camera for tomorrow.
You said that last week.
We're not that bad off yet.
It's okay. It's quite okay. Actually, what time are you doing? Because
Well,
I need to go.
11 o'clock.